All right, and we are live. So welcome back to Defi Diversity. So we got a lot to talk about in our live stream today. First thing I want to talk about is actually something that came out in our news that is really big for mass adoption of Web 3.0 technology. Okay, I've got a vision for how a lot of this stuff can play out, and we just saw a missing piece in the puzzle for this actually come onto the scene. I want to talk about today because this is something that was big in the news, but you might just kind of overlook it unless you figure out how this fits into the bigger picture. And that's exactly what I want to help you see in this video today. We're looking at that. We're looking at a lot of other news updates that have happened in the space since our live stream on Friday. Again, we do these live streams Monday through Friday on this channel. Just subscribe, turn on notifications. You'll find out about those whenever we go live. We're going to answer some of your questions and a lot more. So if you're new around here, hey, I'm Gregory, and on this channel, I turn you into a blockchain master. So if that's something that you're interested in, then smash that like button down below for the YouTube algorithm and subscribe to this channel. And if you want to know how to master blockchain step by step, start to finish, then head on over to dapiversity.com/bootcamp to get started today. All right, so we got people jumping in the chat here. We got Technically, Automatic Beats, Machiavelli, Natasha, Bruno, Jacob, Rodrigo, Eileen, Nikki, Matthew. Welcome, welcome, welcome. All right, so let's jump into this and talk about, this big piece of the puzzle that's important for Web 3.0 to reach mass adoption, okay? So first of all, let's just define mass adoption, what that means. So first of all, how I see crypto mass adoption is essentially something close to, it's hard to say, it's hard to say what it's going to look like exactly what the internet does, right? Or how the internet does today, where everybody has a smartphone that's totally connected to the internet, and every single thing that you do is, tapped into this integral backbone, which is, the internet as we know it today. Or whether it just means that there are things that, we're using blockchain for that the, end user behind the scenes may not even know that they're using blockchain for. But the whole point is that mass adoption as we know it now is basically looks like a lot more people using crypto technology than they do right now, whether they know it or not. All right. And that being a significant portion of, the world's population that actually uses technology. So it's hard to define exactly what that looks like. But if you stick with me in this explanation, I think you'll see where I'm going with this and see that it's going to be a lot bigger than what we have now. So what are the different pieces for this? All right. Two big things that I think are essentially keys to unlocking mass adoption of technology is scaling. Number one, I think everybody knows that. Blockchains have to be faster and cheaper to use in the grand scheme of things and maintain the security in order for more people to be actually able to use this technology at scale. If we want to do things like, rival, the payment volume that Visa does with that many people, we need the scalability of Visa and probably more. Okay. So scaling is a big part of this. The other is just accessibility of the technology for people with like zero friction. All right. And so one thing that really changed that and actually changed the adoption of internet technology and sort of the Web 2.0 mindset was mobile experience. Okay. The ability for people to just pull out their phone and use something with zero friction. All right. Just completely seamless with a few clicks of a button, and they could perform some sort of action that gave them a ton of value just right from their pocket. Okay. And so for that reason, this other side of it, I see mobile use for blockchain as something that's really important. Okay. Can somebody actually get out their phone and use an app that provides them some benefit of blockchain technology that they can't get some other way, right from their pocket with just a few clicks of a button? Okay. So we talked about some of these types of things over the years on this channel, but we have a piece in the puzzle here that's actually making this a lot easier and combines the two things that I'm talking about, both mobile experience and also blockchain, technology, the benefits of all those things with Web 3.0. So I'll pull this strip on my screen here. I'll also get co-host Walshy on the screen here. Welcome, Walshy.
Yeah, GM Gregory, how you doing?
I'm doing all right.
Weekend this weekend?
Yeah, if everybody has anything they want to talk about on our live streams, you can take Walshy's Twitter handle there. You can just drop it, and we'll add that to our list of things. That way, you also drop anything that you want to talk about in the live stream chat here. We'll try to answer your questions as we go throughout the stream right now. So, basically, I want to talk about the common thread that's combined the two things I'm talking about, both scalability and mobile first experience. So DeFi wallet Argent launches a layer 2 account with a waitlist over 500,000. That's a lot of people. over, in just a really short amount of time. So if you're not familiar with Argent, basically it is a blockchain wallet for your phone. Okay, so kind of like MetaMask, but actually more, in my opinion. So basically, if you use a wallet right now in your browser, like MetaMask, for example, you install it, you plug it in, you go use a DApp, okay. Then you have a wallet app on your phone, lets you talk to blockchain, but really you're just going to different websites. You're like plugging, you're connecting to them, and then you're authorizing transactions straight from that app itself. Okay. So with Argent, it actually takes a step further, where you have a wallet where you can, sign transactions, but you can also use applications natively within the app itself. So you don't have to like go to third-party websites necessarily. Like you could use blockchain applications just directly inside the wallet. Okay. And you could also have some sort of like fiat on ramp or a way to buy cryptocurrency and get straight into the application. And I can see, basically everything trending in that direction for a large number of users who would potentially even use blockchain, where basically you have an app that lets you just with a few clicks of a button, let's say you have Apple Pay, Android Pay installed in your phone, you instantly can load funds into an application, and the user onboarding experience is basically just click, 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 and then boom, you have money into a high interest savings account backed by DeFi. Okay, now I'm not saying that that's going to happen overnight. We do have some of those capabilities, but I'm not saying for that to be like a scalable, safe thing for all consumers. That's going to happen overnight. But this is trending in that direction, in my opinion. So because that provides people a huge benefit, because a lot of people can understand high interest savings, right? They're looking at their bank account and saying, "Hey, I got like 0.01% interest or something incredibly low like that." But what if you could just download an app on your phone? That's the pitch. A few clicks of a button, you've got money in there. It's in a stable coin in a relatively safe, DeFi protocol that earns a high interest yield. Now, that's been a huge compelling use case for this, but the scalability has still been a bottleneck because, for now, let's say you want to do it on somewhere, but the fees are high. Well, then that's going to price out a lot of people who are doing this small amounts of money. So here we have essentially we have the announcement that they're going to support layer 2s on top of Ethereum. Again, this is basically where you build a second layer on top of the main Ethereum chain as you know it. And you can do a lot of your activity on this layer, and it still builds off the security of Ethereum layer 1. Okay, and then all the results of those transactions are finalized on the main chain. Okay, and ZK Sync is one that we've had our eye on quite a bit here. We've talked about on this channel a lot, and they're supporting ZK Sync. And the whole idea here is that now for new users who onboard into the application, they're going to onboard them straight onto layer 2s. Okay, it's not going to be like you just start off with something like on Ethereum and then you have to move up to this layer 2 and go through all this stuff. It's like, no, this is going to be the default user experience for new people. And as I see this technology moving forward, I think layer 2s are going to be the default user experience for most consumers who are using the blockchain directly and know that they're using a blockchain. Okay. And one thing we talked about is basically exchanges supporting layer 2s, lots of different on ramps, off ramps supporting these layer 2s, so people can have that option to get into the space and start using applications and actually getting benefits out of them. And how we're seeing it supported in the mobile wallet as a default user experience. And it's actually going to be a better experience for people who just want the quick benefit, because you don't have to go to a cryptocurrency exchange, buy some stuff, move it over here, move it across a bridge, put it into an application, get on some website that you think might look kind of sketchy. It's just all here in this app, fast, cheap, easy, and it just works. And so that, to me, is a huge piece of the puzzle that unlocks the capability for blockchain to really reach that scale, where you could rival, somebody, you could rival Visa transaction speeds. You could rival, the benefit of some of our huge fintech applications that are widely used across the world today. So this is a big thing. There's something that could easily just browse a headline if you're browsing through the news and not realize how significant this actually is. And I'm not saying that this app alone is going to do that, but what I'm saying is this is an implementation that, if it works and it's successful, is probably going to be replicated across other apps, right? And this, like, we figure out what works, other people are going to copy it, right? And then that's going to become something that people get used to. And all these things that we keep, just like all these drops of water that keep, filling in this bucket, eventually, that bucket starts to get heavier and this scale starts to tip and the snowball starts rolling down the hill. And then, it's already an unstoppable force in my opinion, and it just gets even more unstoppable as stuff like this gets figured out and starts to, really click. So I definitely thought this was cool. You got anything to add to this, Walshy? Did you check this out?
Yeah, I've definitely seen this, and I agree with you 1,000%. I think that the future for mass adoption, just getting more people involved with blockchain, is just making it easier for them to use it on the day-to-day basis on the go. And
Right.
being able to utilize your phone is like the number one most obvious go-to way to do that. The smartphone was the biggest development of 2009 era, like late 2000s or late 2010s. That changed a lot of things. And so being able to on the fly, transact using a wallet with a layer 2, skipping the settlement layer of Ethereum altogether, it's a really big deal. Absolutely. I don't have much more to add. I'm excited about this. I love how it's using ZK Sync, a great open source L2, and huge proponent.
Yeah, totally. And ZK Sync is one that we're super excited about. One of the big benefits of ZK Sync is you can get a lot of the scalability with the least amount of trust assumptions. What that means, you don't have to have like all these extra infrastructure like nodes and stuff, or like middlemen essentially that are validating transactions. A lot of that gets done through cryptography, and you can do stuff like bypass along withdrawal times with things like optimistic rollups without the need of another middleman to help facilitate that process. That's what I'm up a minute ago. And people are still able to port their apps over to these environments without really any code changes, like on the grand scheme of things. It's not like you have to rewrite your app. Like you might have to tweak a couple things, but it's not, nothing insane. So that's huge. That's really huge. So let's see. Somebody says ZK, I think they're stoked. Yeah, totally. How can we develop a DApp and save on gas fees? Well, there's your answer right there. Build it on a layer 2. Somebody says most people are not aware the optimistic rollups that platforms like Arbitrum uses are not the future. ZK Sync rollups are the end goal for layer 2. So, I mean, really and truly, the market's going to decide, right? You can say, I mean, I'm not trying to criticize you. I tend to lean towards what you're saying, but the world tends to be a humbling place when you tend to think that you know exactly what's going to happen. Sometimes there's something in your assumptions that are slightly wrong. It's just like when you see a lot of different technology pop up. It's like, well, does decentralization matter? Of course, decentralization matters. But is there a large number of retail speculators that don't, really care about decentralization at all? Absolutely. And if you think about their reasoning for that, is because they're in it for short-term gains. So if you're in it for short-term gains and you're playing a high-risk game to begin with, why on earth do you care about the long-term impact of that? Why do you care about, decentralization? Now, that doesn't mean that decentralization doesn't matter at all, right? Like decentralization, it does matter. If you're going to build technology where you have massive companies that are going to use blockchain to get benefits that they like to improve their businesses, right? Rather than just on a hype train, they're going to care about decentralization, right? You want to talk about doing interbank settlements. You see all this stuff in the news with, Swift and the problems that are happening there. Okay, so you want to rebuild all those old financial rails on blockchain infrastructure. You're going to care about decentralization. You're going to care about all this type of stuff. But the person who's out there just flipping a JPEG, trying to buy a new car or whatever, right? They don't care. They don't care at all. So similarly with the scaling solutions, I'm inclined to lean your direction. But at the end of the day, we'll see. You know what I mean? It's like if network effect really matters, and if some sort of optimistic real technology just gets a insane lead for some reason, it's kind of hard to dethrone that sometimes. So we'll just wait and see. I do think ZK Sync is very promising, and not just ZK Sync, but zero knowledge based scaling solutions in general. It's just that ZK Sync happens to be a very strong contender in that space.
Thought Knucklebuster had a pretty good question. It's pretty short. It says, I'm 54 years old with no coding background, yet I'm deep into blockchain. Is it too late for me to learn blockchain code?
Absolutely
to learn
not.
to blockchain
So
code?
you can go to my YouTube homepage. You can find one of those videos on the student success stories page. I can't remember which one it is. Probably buried a little bit deeper in there now. Maybe like the 6th or 7th one. I did a video with Chris, who was in his 50s and learned blockchain from scratch. No coding experience. Built his own decentralized options trading platform. So absolutely not. Absolutely not too late is what I mean to say. And the opposite is yes, you can.
Right. When I'm learning anything new, especially if it's complex in nature, just like coding is, just like blockchain is, I always like to just set aside like maybe an hour a day and just stick with discipline to that hour and make sure I'm like, staying on top of it. I found if you can devote that much time a day, then that's awesome. It's a great way. But just sticking with it, right? Applying yourself and just letting time take its course is the best way to learn. If you apply an hour a day, a year later, no matter what, you'll have 365, hours under your belt.
Let's see here. So let's look at another thing that popped up, a thread that I thought was actually really interesting that I want to pull up on the screen here. So let's kind of check about what's going on in metaverse right now. So yeah, metaverse is definitely a sub-trend within the entire Web 3.0 ecosystem, blockchain. Again, people throw out these words kind of synonymously. Blockchain, crypto, Web 3.0. Metaverse, they can sometimes all mean the same thing, and they can sometimes mean different things depending on how they're used in context. But they all have the common thread of using blockchains, and you mostly have the common thread of using blockchains. Sometimes Web 3.0 doesn't need a blockchain, but let's pull this up because some people are curious about what's happening in the metaverse space. Is it just Facebook and Meta doing their thing, or is there actually more to it than that? Let's pull this up here. How do I get this to load? All right. All right. So I want to pull this thread. So we spoke to 50 Web3 metaverse companies in the past year. So their takeaways summarized. So number one, Web3 metaverse refers to digital virtual worlds, often with some element of user ownership via tokens or NFTs. So that's really good thing to start the thread with, because a lot of people are scratching their heads saying, hey, what is the metaverse actually? What does this mean? Like, it's kind of a nebulous concept. And we've even talked about that in some on this channel. It's like kind of a gray area. I do think that there's a huge potential for the Web3 metaverse long term. It's just that it hasn't really had that sort of like, in my opinion, really 0 to 1 moment where it's just like kind of goes off. We see this big use case that's very obvious, that everybody's going to get behind and rally, and it's going to really blow up. The blockchain space tends to be like that. It was like that when I got into it back in 2017. We had ICOs, we had that type of stuff. People would argue that was it, but that use case kind of died off. But it really wasn't until like DeFi hit the scene that was sort of like, yeah, this is definitely an unstoppable force. And I guess you could call ICOs the beginning of that. But anyways. So every project we came across fell into 3 categories. So infrastructure, experience layer, in world, so like goggles or AR, and then value add layer, out world. Okay, so kind of organize this in different categories here. So value layer, if you got guilds, guild DAO, infrastructure, studios, experience layer like games, okay, e-commerce, social, business to business stacks down here, and the infrastructure like identity, interoperability, metaverse, asset, game engines, hardware access. So I mean, honestly, like this is very reminiscent of early blockchain. We had all these charts go out everywhere. It's like all this potential, but a lot of this stuff hadn't even been built yet. So that's kind of like what the metaverse looks like right now. So a common analogy for metaverse equals games. All right, the more appropriate one is layer ones, like layer 1 blockchains, since we're talking about smart contract platforms. So like layer 1 blockchain platforms, they are platforms on which developers create experience and services. And like layer 1s in 2017, we met more people creating them than building on them. All right. So that's pretty, reminds me a lot of early blockchain days. So while the addressable market for open world MMORPGs is sizable, my views of the largest metaverse will encompass far more than a game. All right. So similar to fat protocols, the winning metaverse substrate will be worth far more than any individual app. So more later. So this is the metaverse substrate that he's talking about in his chart. So many companies we spoke with invested in are building what are essentially enhanced user-owned MMORPGs. So Axie Infinity, Illuvium, Star Atlas, Decimated. Or I think I'm saying that right. This is not a project I'm super familiar with. Looks pretty cool though. If y'all know anything about this this game, let us know. So basically, that's examples where familiar game experiences plus ownership of in-game items via NFTs. So games sound trivial, but they're not to be scoffed at. Put in context, in 2021, 61% of the $8.8 billion of revenue from Activision Blizzard, like the big game studio, came from in-game purchases. 61% came from in-game purchases. That's absolutely crazy. Okay, I didn't even know that stat until I went through this.
Yeah, they love their in-game store, man.
Yeah, that's absolutely crazy. I mean, that's a massive money printer. And basically, it was company was recently acquired for $68 billion. Okay, so let's just do the math on that really quickly. So 8.8 is 61%. So I'm just gonna roughly add 8.8. I'm gonna say 6.5. I'm just gonna do rough math off the top of my head. So 15. 68. Let's just say, yeah, it's about 4.5 times the valuation of the company. That's crazy, man. $68 billion. So anyways, play to earn games present a massive opportunity and has already spawned infrastructure companies like, Looks Rare and others. Okay. And with 1 million players across 11,000 guilds, guilds are arguably the largest examples of DAOs today. That's actually a really good analogy. Because again, I'm not a big gamer, so sometimes I don't see the future for the game space quite as much as some of the other people, in the space. But I think that's a really poignant analogy. I'm familiar enough with guilds and how they work. I think DAOs are a perfect use case for that. So anyways, similar to how Facebook replicated our social experience into one digital platform, the winning metaverse will bundle up multiple use cases into one open virtual world. So it seems like the analogy here is the winning metaverse looks like a winning social network. And I think that stands to reason because of the value proposition of a new metaverse. Maybe we see that natural distribution of, maybe it's we have multiple metaverses, or maybe we have one metaverse that kind of has these hot spots in the middle, and you have 3 or 4 or 5 sort of big players that occupy that space. If there's an analogy with social media, I mean, think about, you only have so many social networks that people really spend time on. What is it? Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok. I mean, what else is it? We have some rise and fall on the way. Snapchat, nobody really cares about that anymore. We had Vine for a while. Some stuff was headed in the same direction, right? And it just totally, fell off a cliff. We got YouTube as a social network, and it has a very distinct use case. So was that 5, half dozen, maybe something like that? Maybe that's kind of how the metaverse plays out too. So anyways, I won't go through the entire thread here and just belabor every single point, but I'll put it in the live chat replay here, and then you all can kind of dive in more to that. So that's an update on the metaverse. I thought this was really interesting because this is talking to people who are actually building in the metaverse space and what they're doing. And that's a real data driven sort of forecast into where we think things might be headed, rather than just kind of sheer speculation of, hey, what's the metaverse going to do? Well, it's just ask people who are building it. I mean, I'm sure lots of them are spending tons of money on research and tons of money on crunching the numbers and seeing what people are actually doing. And because the incentive for them is to build what the people want. And so that's where you want to keep your ear to the ground to see what are they doing.
Yeah, it's really hard to sound off on what's actually going to capture mainstream attention, get everyone flocking into metaverses, right?
Yeah,
when all said and done, everyone's trying to throw around their ideas. You have the biggest companies, the biggest recording artists. You have stand-up comedy shows, all being incorporated into the metaverse experience. You have VR chat, which I think is huge. I think it's really cool use case as well. One more of the interesting ones that I actually participated in was from this DAO that essentially was looking to initiate people into the actual DAO to participate in one of their opening ceremonies. It's called Temple DAO, and it was really cool because it took place in the CryptoVoxels metaverse, and it was wild. I have a whole video on it. But the long story short was that I was basically solving riddles and going through like an metaverse created, like not an obstacle course, but just area, and completing trials and rituals. It was super cool. I was laughing. I was having a lot of fun during the entire experience. And it was something like that that really, pulled me in and captured my attention, to the point where I even, started a YouTube channel essentially out of it. So we're still waiting for like that big just aha moment where everyone starts flocking in. Maybe like going to the doctor, right, is the perfect example of where people start flocking in. You just stay at home and go to the doctor over VR chat or something like that. I don't know, right? It's all speculative, but find that use case. Like you said, just like 2017, DeFi hadn't been invented yet. 2022, once we find that perfect metaverse fit, boom.
Yeah, so we'll see. And with metaverse, we also don't necessarily know that it's going to be a thing that like everybody uses, like the internet, like your grandma, right? Like it's like, is your grandma really going to use a metaverse? Well, we don't know, maybe, but you're thinking about these are the likelihood and like what the if you're talking about betting on the metaverse in some form or fashion, it seems like there's some things that are a pretty safe bet, like gaming and gamer culture. Seems like a pretty safe bet that we're going to see a metaverse really flourish in that area, because talking about people who want digital experiences, they want ability to make money doing something outside of a traditional job, some way to monetize their grind work. They're already doing video games. How they coordinate, like I said, with guilds, DAOs. Dude, it's hard to argue that that's not gonna permeate. I mean, it already is, right? Like in one sense, you can say it's already happened, right? This is sort of like how I felt about DeFi in 2020. Like DeFi already had an insane number of users like in 2020. Now it's not mass adoption, right? But it's sort of like it's already happened. It's just at what scale you're talking about. So, somebody says, I meant to make an AR NFTs app, not VR. Yeah, augmented reality is a part of this too, where basically you mix, 3D digital experiences with your world around you, whether that's through a wearable, like a Google Glass kind of thing. I know Google Glass isn't a thing anymore. Makes me sound old just talking about it. Or like, all the analogies I'm going to use are old, like Pokemon Go, where like you use your camera and you see stuff and you like capture it. Like people don't do this stuff anymore, but those are like the early analogies that I think of.
Once they can incorporate, and this is definitely far off, but once they can incorporate like an AR experience into contact lenses or something that's not bulky on your face, I think that's gonna be a huge game changer, right? I was born in the late 80s, and for me, growing up playing video games and stuff, it was the coolest idea, the coolest vision to be able to walk around with like a heads up display, a HUD, and just be able to see, the status or the price of something on the shelf, or what my heart rate is at that moment on my overlay. I think AR is going to blow people away when they finally perfect it. There's one thing I can say for absolutely certain is that with the metaverses themselves, it's not going to be just one. And that's something I wanted to spell like 1,000%, right? It's not going to be, Facebook's or metaverse, right? And that's it, right? Not at all. There's going to be a lot of different types of metaverses, and, consolidating them or centralizing them into one experience is just not, it's against the ethos of Web3. And it's definitely not what it's going to look like in the end.
Yeah, totally. That doesn't mean though that we couldn't see more with the massive amount of market share, like a majority market share. That definitely could happen. So, we'll see. Yeah, we'll see. Because sometimes that's kind of how the world tends to play out. It's like you have somebody who takes the spoils. It's not everything, right? Some stuff plays out where we kind of have this long tail of even distribution, but not many things.
With technology itself, you typically see actually more of a consolidated like nature. For example, like if you want to put a video up on the internet, you want to go to like YouTube, right?
Right.
So we do see that often with technology. I think the difference with this, and I definitely agree with your point, when you see like the network effect of some large corporation coming in and maybe taking like a large market share, that'll happen. But I don't know.
Facebook's gonna be that person. I'm not gonna say Facebook's gonna be that person, right? Like I know people worried about. But also, if you want to find out like where we are with metaverse technology and actually in like actual like experience layer stuff where you see and experience, like go check out the interview with Mark Zuckerberg and Gary Vee from a couple months back, kind of talking about this. He weighs in all, like Mark weighs in on all this stuff, Talking about like, well, hey, where are we with like contact lenses? It's like not anywhere close, right?
Yeah.
Like, so he'll like talk about, you know, where we are with this technology, that technology, so you can kind of get a glimpse of kind of where, you know, what's the trajectory of the metaverse, how much progress have we made, what's the future potential, what does Facebook want to do, in so much as they're going to tell you in that video. It's
Agreed. Yeah.
pretty interesting. So
Yeah. It
let's
was
see,
a sick interview.
we'll grab one other, you know, one or a couple more questions, and I got to split for today. Apple Glass is a game changer. Yeah, I'm definitely excited to see what Apple comes out with in terms of their wearable technology. I haven't seen if that's actually confirmed whether they're going to do it or not yet. If anybody knows the contrary to that, let me know. As far as I know, it's still a rumor. So we'll see.
Pokemon Go was popping so hard in 2016. Yeah.
Yeah.
For like a week.
Yeah. I never played it. I just saw other people play it, and I was like, oh, this is cool.
Yeah, I think I tried it once, but all my coworkers at the time were like freaking out about it. They were leaving the office to run around like the grounds and catch stuff.
Yeah. Can you use a game engine to make a Web3 game with NFTs? If so, which one? And are there any licensing issues? So I don't know about licensing issues. You definitely can. You know, you can use Unity. You can use any of those like major game engines. At the end of the day, it's just about representing the ownership of the NFTs inside of it. We're actually going to do a tutorial on the channel pretty soon about building a game. So subscribe. You'll find about that. We have one already. That's just like a real simple, like tic-tac-toe style game or a memory matching game. I can't remember. But we're actually going to have one where you can kind of like, you know, play a game, like a 3D game in your browser, and then powered by NFTs. So definitely subscribe. All right, everybody. That's all I got for today. As always, smash that like button down below for the YouTube algorithm. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. If you got something you want to talk about on our live streams, hit up Walshy on Twitter. There's his Twitter handle. You know, if you're as fast with this technology as I am, you want to get your hands dirty, how can you get started today? We can go to my YouTube homepage. You can find my free courses there. They're like Udemy courses, but they're totally free. And if you like those and you want to take the next step, right, maybe you'll take a master's shortcut entirely. Actually become a blockchain master step-by-step, start to finish, over at dappuniversity.com/bootcamp. You don't have to be an expert to get started today. Help people with zero coding experience become real-world blockchain developers in a matter of months. So that's all I've got. Until next time, thanks for watching Dapp University.